What's up, folks? This is Tony Brewer. You're listening to Cogitations. Cogitations is the podcast where we think about things, we contemplate them, we turn them over in our minds, and then we discuss them. Daniel chapter 7, verse 28, Daniel writes, "Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me. My countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart." Now, we're not going to keep the matter in our heart. We're going to talk about it. And today we're going to talk about, well, can Christians compromise when it comes to politics? When compromise meets, or when Christians, hold on a second, what was the thumbnail? I've lost my mind. I can't remember. Yeah, when politics meets moral conscience. Sorry, I didn't know that I didn't know if I put on the thumbnail on YouTube like it was just too much. Can Christians compromise on politics? So I think I had a good can Christians compromise on politics? When Christians, I don't know. There was a reason I went this route. When politics meets moral conscience. I can't remember what made me do it. I had about 6 or 7 different ways I could have titled this, but here it is. What's going on, Jason Goldtrap? Good to see you. Incidentally, for those of you as you come in, thank you so much for tuning in. Uh, we're going to talk about this today. I don't know how long we'll stay on. Probably how long we stay on has to do a lot with your comments. Um, this would probably be better for a free for all Friday, but I don't know. It was on my mind. Um, on Facebook, and I'm going to go there right now. On Facebook, I posed a question, and I have found that these get a decent amount of traffic. I mean, when I say traffic is souls interacting. Thought in progress. A person can make can make compromises and concessions politically that they could not make morally. Now, let me tell you why I I even thought about that question. Um, Let me see if I can get down here to. I think this is it. Yeah. If you praise a woman who aborted her child because she did what was best for herself, then I hope you are praising men who abandoned their children because they did what was best for themselves. You can't have it both ways. And this meme, and we've gotten a little bit of traffic out of this meme. This meme is a hypothetical. It is it's a logical exercise to test whether or not your position on the political issue of abortion is consistent politically. You might say, well, I think abortion should be free for all with no restrictions whatsoever because it's the woman's body, it's her choice, and those decisions should be made between her and her medical professional. Okay. So let's say for a minute that I'm 100% on board with that. I get you. What about the man? This is what got this wrinkle in my brain. I want you to think about this. If a man and a woman meet at let's say they're not where they're supposed to be, they meet at a nightclub, alcohol is involved, inhibitions are lowered, they go back to a room and they engage in that act that is only holy and acceptable for married men and women to do, and subsequently there is life conceived. Let's say that we take the position that it's at that point it's a zygote, it's a clump of cells. This is eventually going to grow into a human being. I use Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was adopted. He was given up for adoption. What if his mother, who gave him up for adoption, had have aborted him instead? How different would our world be? And then someone might answer, well, how different would the world be if we go back in time and Hitler's mother would have aborted him? I'm like, right. So what you've just conceded to is that if you go back to March or April of 1977 and you harmed my mother, or let's say you harmed my mother in such a way that she miscarries, or you actually just take her out. You understand? I'm trying to couch my language so we don't get crazy flagged in the algorithm. But anyway, I don't exist anymore. My existence then is tied to that clump of cells residing in my mother in beginning sometime in February of 1977. So whenever your rebuttal to, well, think about how the world would be different if Steve Jobs' mother had abandoned him, or had aborted him instead of abandoning him, instead of giving him up for adoption. I shouldn't say abandoned. That puts a stigma on women that give up their children for adoption. If you make a bad choice and you become pregnant and you give your child up for adoption, God bless you. You have a hard row to hoe, and that has to at least be as difficult as aborting the child. Actually, it's probably more difficult because you don't have a child and you had to go through the pains of childbirth. Anyway, but the point is, we're laying the foundation for this. If your rebuttal is, well, what about Hitler? What about Steve Jobs? Then you're conceding that personhood is conceived in the womb. That personhood and life are coeval. If I can snuff out someone's life and that removes from their body their personhood, like I'm a clump of cells. If you snuffed my life out right now, I would no longer be who I am. At least in this realm of existence, I would be who I am in the spiritual realm, but I wouldn't be who I am in this realm. So my personhood would be removed from this realm of existence. If you traveled back in time to 1977 and gave my mother a morning after pill the morning after she was conceived, I might only be 150,000 cells, but you have removed my personhood from existence in this realm of existence, and I will be in existence in the other realm. Do you see how that works? Personhood and life are coeval. The inception of personhood is the conception of life. I think I'm going to. I think I want to put out a post about that. The inception of personhood is the conception of life. Now, the or the compromise politically. If I were a senator and I were casting votes, and someone brought a bill to the floor, let's say it was the left. They brought a bill to the floor and they said, we want to give abortion free for all, federally funded, with no repercussions and no questions asked, up to and including birth, up to including the 9th month. I shouldn't say birth, but up to including the 9th month. Okay. I couldn't vote on that for love nor money. But if there was a clause in the bill that said, with this addendum, men would now have the right to where if this man and woman come together for one night stand and the result is a baby, if she decides to opt out of motherhood, it will cost her nothing. And if he wants to opt out of fatherhood, it will cost him nothing. But if she does not want to opt out of motherhood, he can still opt out of fatherhood and it will cost him nothing. I am convinced that if we make that change, that abortion in the United States would all but disappear because, and I've done the research on this, only about 1 to 3%, and the 3%'s way, way high. Like that's a way, way overly liberal estimation statistic. 1 to 3. 1 to 3% is abortion for rape and incest and health of the mother. That's not life of the mother. That's health. And then 3 to 5%, and again, the 5% is pretty high, is pretty. It's questionable. It's probably closer to 3. And some people I've talked to even said that those statistics are both skewed, that they're misrepresented, they're overrepresented. But it's only 1 to 3% for. Excuse me, I got those backwards. 1 to 3%. No, it's 1 to 3% for rape and incest and health of the mother, and no, rape and incest. That's right. And then 3 to 5% for health of the mother. I'll get it out in a minute. I should have had that in my show notes so I could have it at a glance, so it wouldn't sound like such a doofus. So anyway, the point of the matter is, conservatively around 90 to 95% of abortions are done across the country for convenience. Now think about this: if it were the case that a man and a woman both knew that if they come together for a one night stand of promiscuity, that the man could walk away scot free and the woman had no control over that, I don't think those meetings would be taking place. I think the issue to the sexual revolution in the United States and Western culture is to, quite frankly, hold people accountable for their sex lives. Because right now, the way the laws are set up in the United States and Canada, women are not held accountable for their sex lives, men are. Go do some research on the internet, and by research I mean put your square hat on and move your tassel to the other side and get out Google, and you're a scholar. But all jokes aside, go look on the internet and look at how there are these women that will baby trap these professional athletes. So much so, and so much so has this happened that it made its way into an episode of Boston Legal in the early 2000s. That a woman will seduce a man, perform fellatio, and then keep that stuff, and she'll spit it out, and she will put it in a turkey baster. You think I'm making this up? I'm not. And it's not a one-off. Look it up. You'll see it's not a one-off. Now, it's not happening all the time, but why is the case that there are women out there that are doing this, or baby trapping in other ways? Just telling these men, "Yeah, I'm on the pill. Let's go. We can have fun." And then a baby comes. Well, it's because the way the law works. If that woman traps a professional athlete, she's got access to his resources for 18 years, according to the federal government. That's why we need to change these laws. You can hear women talk. In my younger days, I've heard women talking and stuff like that, and I actually, several times, I've heard women when I was bouncing and stuff in clubs working security. You'd hear all kinds of stuff, and a lot of times, several times a week. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday were the days. And women talking about, well, if you think he's going to leave you, or you think he's cheating on you, just he's not doing what you want to do, or this, that, and the other, just throw a baby on him. Like, good grief. You see, men have no rights in this situation. So if I'm a congressman and a law comes across the carpet, law comes on the floor, a bill comes on the floor, rather, not a law, that I believe, even if it codified abortion and made it federally funded, if it allowed the man to walk away scot-free and the woman had no control over his wallet for 18 years, I think abortion, as I can't remember who said now, it was Rand Paul maybe, But abortion shouldn't be illegal. Abortion should be unconscionable and unthinkable. And that's kind of where I am. Now, check this out. I put the I put the I put the question out because of this, if you praise a woman who aborted her child. The reason I put that out there is a logical exercise. This woman who met this man and they did things in the bathroom stall of a club, she's pregnant. She can dispose of her baby in the womb, and that man wouldn't even know. If she tells him and he says, "But I want to keep the child. Let's try to make this work. I want to that's my baby in your womb. I want to be a father. I'm a father now." If she says no, I'm going to get rid of it. He has no say whatsoever. Now he should, but under this political system, he doesn't. However, if she comes to him and says, "I'm pregnant and it's yours," and he says, "Well, you know what? I didn't even know your name when we hooked up with that one night stand in that stall. I don't want you to raise my child. I don't want to, I don't even want, I don't, I, and if I have no control over that, I certainly don't want to be married to you or even in your life. And I don't want to be a father at all. It's not good for me right now. I'm focused on my career. I'm trying to go out there and get that money and get that bank and build up. And a child would ruin everything for me right now. So I'm just going to walk away." Well, right now, the way the laws are set up, he cannot walk away because she'll just take him to court, and now she's got access to his resources for 18 years. That's why abortions run so high, is because people come together and they think, if we have sex before we're married, before we're ready for a child, all we have to do is abort it. It needs to stop. And if I were voting for things that come across the floor, I would vote for that bill. Federally funded abortion with no restrictions, but the man is able to walk away as well. If you did that, abortions would all but cease in the United States. Now, that is a pragmatic mindset. I've lost the English language for a minute. Let me run down what I've got here. I can't believe I've been talking about this and rambling for 18 minutes. Hello, everybody. I'll get your comments here in a minute. The crossroads of abortion and compromise. Conviction and compromise. My bad. I looked at my notes wrong. So, as Christians, we often face situations where our moral convictions clash with political decision making. For those involved in politics, these tensions become even more pronounced and difficult to navigate. The key question is, how does a Christian engage in a system that doesn't reflect biblical values? That's really the question we're talking about. I'm just looking at this topic through the lens of abortion. So can a Christian politician compromise on legislation that doesn't fully align with Scripture but reduces harm? Now, this is different than the foolishness of graded absolutism. Graded absolutism says that you can commit a lesser evil in order to mitigate a greater evil. Scripture teaches no such thing. You cannot lie to save someone's life and be righteous in your lie. God's grace may cover you. You may be able to be forgiven, but it's still a sin. Rahab the harlot sinned by lying, but she had faith, and she was rewarded because of her faith, and in spite of her lie, she was added into Faith's Hall of Fame, Hebrews chapter 11. So this is not about graded absolutism. This is about playing chess, I think. This is about political posturing and trying to order a humongous group of people with different values and perspectives and all that. How do we all form a cohesive unit where we can all get along or live together without killing one another? Politically, you have to make compromises that you wouldn't have to make or wouldn't be able to make morally. Here's the thing: abortion is murder. There are these 6 things the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him, Proverbs 6. In that list is hands that shed innocent blood. I will never take another stance that other than abortion is murder. You are killing a human life that is innocent. That life is existential. Even if the identity of that person is unknown, that person still has an identity, because personhood, the inception of personhood, is the conception of life. And the way you logically test that, if you go back to March of 1977 and my mother calls my mother to have an abortion, everything, like, think about it. I've got 2 children that wouldn't exist. I've got a wife that she converted to Christianity in large part because of my influence whenever we first started hanging out with one another. And then she's studied with people and converted them to the gospel. And I've studied with other people and converted them to the gospel. There's 2 or 3 people where I've saved their lives that would be dead if I wasn't born. So you might be able to go back to 1977 in March, and you might be able to say, well, that's just a clump of cells. You don't even know his name. Yeah, I don't know his name yet. But he's existential, because the inception of personhood is the conception of life. But anyway, I digress. I've gone far afield of what I intended to say. So, can a Christian politician compromise on legislation that doesn't fully align with Scripture or in order to reduce harm, or but reduces harm? So, folks, we need more than surface level answers. First off, let's talk about the nature of political compromise. Politics by design involves compromise because laws must balance competing interest. See, that's important. Laws must balance competing interest. Christians who hold fast to biblical principles struggle with how to engage in this reality. We're called to stand for truth, but the question remains, should we reject any law that is not perfect? Abortion is a prime example. This is a dilemma that must be thought about. We must have answers for this dilemma. As we believe life begins at conception, and abortion is morally wrong. That's why this is such a good example of this dilemma. Since completely outlawing abortion is politically impossible in the United States, at least right now. Remember, I've talked about politically, the idea is incremental changes. So there's no way that we're going to go from what we have now in one jump to outlaw abortions. But we must consider then whether or not we should work to pass laws that limit it. Incrementalism, as I said, it's the idea of making small gains in hope of reaching the ultimate goal. It becomes an important strategy. Christians need to be in politics for the long haul. When, like, for instance, in 2 weeks, when you cast your ballot for Donald Trump, guess what? You're not really voting for Trump. You're voting for the guy 3 or 4 presidents later who you want to be that much, four orders of magnitude better than Donald Trump is. I think J.D. Vance is awesome. J.D. Vance would be a much better president than Donald Trump, probably. But we need to get Trump in the office, that because Trump is incrementally better than Biden. Harris is incrementally worse. We don't need to go the wrong way. So if you get Trump next presidential term, you might get a Biden, you might get a Ted Cruz in office, you might get Ron DeSantis. But I believe those people all Ben Carson. Let me tell you something. There's no way that Ben Carson in the last three presidential terms could have run for office and won. But if we had three presidential terms of Donald Trump, let's say we had one more term of Donald Trump and two more terms of J.D. Vance, or two more terms of Ron DeSantis, or two more terms of Ted Cruz, I believe then the nation would be ready for a Ben Carson. And I think Ben Carson would be a unifying figure. I really do. But I think he's too soft spoken, and he don't have enough of the bad stuff in him that makes Trump unlikable to really be as bloodthirsty and cutthroat as he needs to be to win in this political climate. I don't think. I could be talking out of school. Anyway, let me keep going. Incrementalism. All right. So understand. Now, number 3, harm reduction over moral concession. Let me cook here. And I promise I'm going to bring the Bible into this. I'm going to have some examples from the Bible. But right now, we're just talking about logical reasoning. So harm reduction is a vital principle for Christians in politics, especially when total elimination of evil is not possible. Abortion is evil. If a law can restrict abortions to cases of rape, incest, and life endangerment of the mother, it could prevent many abortions that would otherwise occur. I would say that you would see abortions all but gone in the United States. Voting for such a law, however, does not mean that you endorse abortion. It means rather you support or endorse reducing harm, and you're going to continue to fight for the protection of all life. Take a note from the page of the Democrats. Look at what they've been doing for the last 50 years. They've been incrementally moving the Overton window to the left, to the point where now you've got Donald Trump, who is a New York businessman Democrat 20 years ago, is now ultra conservative right wing, in effect, incumbent presidential candidate. And I know he's not truly the incumbent, but if we go, if you look at the debate and you're addressing the candidates the way decorum says they need to be addressed, you're going to say, okay, Vice President Kamala Harris, this question is for you. Okay, President Trump, this question is for you. So all the people that are listening, they are being trained to think of Donald Trump as the president, as the incumbent. The Democrats understand the long game. They understand you vote, and that's why these big omnibus bills are there. It's all a chess match. It's all a chess game. But look how far it's incremental changes. All the way back whenever I was a kid and the homosexual agenda started popping up, everybody knew right off the bat, this is going to end in the codification of same-sex marriage, and they're going to start recruiting and I shouldn't say that word. They're going to start recruiting and converting your children. No, we're not going to do that. We just want to be left alone. We want to be free to do what adults want to do, two consenting adults in the privacy of our home. We just want to be left alone. Okay, it didn't take but a few decades till we get what we have now, because it was incremental changes. And I think it's because we have the ecumenicals in the United States thinking if they can't cast a vote for Jesus himself as the leader of the free world, then they can't vote at all. Well, that's dumb. You're playing chess, folks. Anyway, if I voted for, like for instance, Donald Trump's position on abortion is political compromise. I don't agree with him on abortion, but I can get behind him because his solution is compromise. We're going to let the states have it. And he's open to federally lowering. I can't remember now what it was. I know he was in favor of the heartbeat bill in Florida. A lot of people said that he balked on that. He didn't. He's in favor of it. He said he would vote for it. But anyway, the point is, Trump is for compromise. Trump is for fewest abortions possible. Kamala Harris is for as many abortions as possible. Now, as a Christian, who do you vote for? It's pretty easy. When I vote for Trump, I'm not voting for all the abortions you want as long as you can't hear a heartbeat. I'm voting for getting rid of all the abortions that are going on now after a heartbeat. You see, voting for such a law or such a candidate doesn't mean endorsing it, but it means you voted to reduce harm, and you're going to continue to fight. That's how the Democrats act. I don't see that's how the left act. I don't see how the right acts like that. So political compromise, however, should never turn to moral concession. That's the main thing. It's crucial to avoid crossing the line between reducing harm and endorsing something that is actively evil or actively promotes evil. So let's talk about euthanasia as another example. I appreciate the comments that are coming in, and if you have questions, comments, observations, or objections, put them in the comments section. I would like to answer some of them and read them. So, euthanasia, like abortion, is a deeply moral issue that most Christians oppose. Sometimes the political choice comes down to a bill allowing euthanasia under strict conditions or a bill allowing it for any reason. Now, if you have been paying attention to the euthanasia situation, anyway, if you have been paying attention to the medical assistance in dying situation, and if you look north to Canada, if you're from the United States, I'm kind of speaking to the United States today, I guess, but this is for anybody in any nation, anytime, any place, anywhere. But if you're in the United States and you look north to Canada, you know that the medical assistance in dying. Well, let me do this. How many? I'm just Googling. Have taken advantage of in Canada. Made in Canada. All right, this is nothing. Okay, this is Canada.ca. It's the very first thing that comes up on Google. The 4th annual report on medical assistance in dying in Canada 2022. Table of comments, highlights, minister's message, introduction. All right. Growth in the number of medically assisted deaths in Canada continues in 2022. Folks, this is the government website. They're proud of it. In 2022, there were 13,241 medical assistance in dying provisions reported in Canada, and it accounted for 4.1% of all deaths in Canada. The number of cases of MAID in 2022 represents a growth rate of 31.2% over the previous year. All provinces except Manitoba and the Yukon continue to experience a steady year-over-year growth. When all data sources are considered, the total number of medically assisted deaths reported in Canada since the introduction of MAID in legislation in 2016, 44,958. All right? All right. 50,000 OCUPA occupant stadiums. that are famous. Hold on. Uh, Famous in the USA. No, I don't want the largest. I want the ones that hold about the Astrodome. All right, here. So think about the Astrodome. The NRG Astrodome, formerly and also known as the Houston Astrodome, or simply the Astrodome, was the world's first multi-purpose dome sports stadium. It sat around 50,000 fans with a record attendance of 68,266 set by George Strait in 2022. Now, so think about the Astrodome. That's a huge stadium. It has a capacity of 50,000. Since 2016, enough people have been euthanized in Canada only to fill the Astrodome. How do you square that as a Christian? How do you even vote for anything in Canada? Because I guarantee you, Pierre Poilievre, whom next year I will be pulling the lever for, he's okay with MAID. He's okay with abortion. He's okay with trans rights. All of those on a moral level, Christians should be vehemently opposed. So how could Christians even vote? Because on one hand you got Pierre Poilievre, and on the other you got Justin Trudeau. It's the same principle as Trump or Harris. Trump believes and does some terribly heinous things that Christians vehemently oppose. But endorsing Trump is not endorsing those negative things. It's endorsing the mitigation of harm because we know how bad Harris is going to be. So when I cast a ballot for Pierre Poilievre, even though he thinks that women ought to have a right to kill their babies before a certain time in the womb, he doesn't believe and he doesn't endorse what Justin Trudeau and the Liberals actually capital L, it's a Liberal Party in Canada. Justin Trudeau is a Liberal. Like Kamala's a Democrat, Trudeau's a Liberal. And conservative, Poilievre is part of the Conservative Party. Like Trump is a Republican, Poilievre is a conservative. But anyway, what was I at? What was I saying? Trump. No, Trudeau. So on one hand, you got Poilievre that thinks women ought to have the right to abort their children up to with restrictions. Trump just says, let's do it no restrictions. And by the way, we need to loosen the restrictions on MAID. I'm not even going to get into the statistics of those almost 50,000 people who've died since 2016 because of medical assistance and dying. Some of them are young people that just are depressed. Don't believe me? Look it up. Some people are that taking advantage of the MAID are people that are otherwise healthy. They just needed some assistance from the government to put a wheelchair ramp in their house, or a wheelchair lift rather. And instead of spending the money on it, the government sends them a MAID package. I ain't joking with you. We have a member of the church here whose loved one, instead of getting treatments that he need, was sent he didn't ask for it. He was solicited and sent a MAID package. So yes, the liberals in Canada, they want to open that wide open to anybody that wants it. They want to give abortion up to and including just a little bit after birth. They want to be able to let the public school system take the children from the parents and trans them. That's exactly what the Democrats want to do. Pierre Poilievre and the conservatives in Canada, they want to mitigate that. So I'm voting for them. In the United States, I'm voting for Trump I vote for Trump because guess what? He wants to mitigate harm. So you see, I can compromise and I can make concessions politically that I never could morally. You see, if you and I can't. That's the problem with the politics nowadays. People don't understand this. Maybe that's the problem with Christians in politics. I don't know. Anyway, a Christian politician may vote for stricter laws to prevent widespread abuse of a euthanasia program, even though they do not support euthanasia itself. If I was a congressman and legislation come to the floor about restricting this, I would vote for it because I wouldn't be voting for the service, I would be voting for the restriction. So once again, harm reduction is the key principle, as this approach prevents greater harm without compromising core convictions. So now the tension between idealism and pragmatism. There's always going to be tension between our ideas and the realities of the world in which we live. Politics is often messy, and Christians entering that world must be prepared to make tough decisions. I'm watching Leslie Knope with Parks and Recreation. When she gets elected to the city council, she tries to do something, and I can't remember what all it was, but she was talking to one city councilman trying to secure his vote, and it was terrible. Like it was the law of unforeseen consequences. She came back and said, "I need you to reverse that." And he said, "Look, I will if you can find something for me in the if you can find the money for it in the budget, but it's not there. You've got till 5 o'clock, or else the dog shelter is going to be shut down because there's no city budget for it. We're playing with live bullets here, Leslie." Well, that's if you're a Christian and you're going into politics, you need to understand you're playing with live rounds. And as a Christian, if you're going to vote in the United States of America or Canada, do you understand that vote counts? Think about what the United States would be like if Trump would have remained in office in 2020. And then in 2024, we'd be having somebody like Ted Cruz, J.D. Vance, Ben Carson, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if we'd be ready for Ben Carson even after another 4 years of Trump. I love the idea of a president, Ben Carson, but I think we need another president who's intermittently tamer than Trump before we get Carson. But I think if that fella, whoever he or she will be, will pave the way, Vivek Ramaswamy would be one. But I think Carson would be awesome. Anyway, so we gotta try to make progress. It's incremental steps toward a better future. So as Christians, we must never compromise our core beliefs, regardless of our political pressures. However, in a political system that is never going to fully align with the Bible, we have to value harm reduction where possible. Political compromise does not mean surrender. It can mean incremental changes or incremental progress toward righteousness. By staying focused on the goal, Christians can continue to work toward, I don't know, not utopia, but at least advancing righteousness. We can try to gain some ground. And if you're thinking, well, Tony, that's not the right way to gain righteousness, we just need to convert. Don't stop evangelizing. Why do you think it's one and not the other? Why do you think one's to the exclusion of the other? I can be involved in the political process while being a soul winner for Jesus. Anyway, I didn't know that. Hold on a second. Let me get to the comment. I'm done with the information for now. Let's go to the let's go to, all right, here's some, and I don't know how good of examples these are, and I'm just going to read this. Joseph, when elevated to a position of power in Egypt, did not live in a society that followed God's laws. Yet he worked within the Egyptian system to prevent widespread famine. While Egypt was not a land that followed God's laws, Joseph accepted a role in its government and managed to both protect Egypt and his family. He had to navigate a pagan system with his actions, or with his politics, but his actions reflected the principles of harm reduction, or the principle of harm reduction, ensuring the well being of many while living under a secular authority. Then think about Daniel in Babylon. I've got to get some glasses or a bigger screen. All right. Daniel served the courts in Babylon for, uh, or well, he served the kings of Babylon and Persia. He did not compromise his personal faith. Remember the whole deal about praying with the doors open? Well, he worked within the foreign systems of government under which he lived to maintain a position of influence. Daniel accepted a pagan name, education, and role in Babylonian administration without directly compromising his faith. He didn't yield on matters that violated his core beliefs, such as worship of other gods. But his refusal to bow to false gods and his willingness to serve the kings reflects a form of balancing convictions and political realities. I guarantee you, Daniel signed off on some things that were a little bit distasteful to him, but yet he used his influence to mitigate those things as much as possible. And I want you to think about Paul, who used his Roman citizenship. This is Acts 16, 22, 25. As a Roman citizen, Paul appealed to Roman law to protect his rights to further his mission, such as when he appealed to Caesar to avoid execution in Acts 25:11. He was pragmatic and he recognized the benefits of Roman law, yet he never compromised his devotion to spreading the gospel. Now, this shows that Christians can engage with political systems, even those that don't align with biblical values, in a way that can further God's work without betraying their faith. And then this is the one I wanted to end on. The Hebrew midwives in Egypt faced a command from Pharaoh to kill all the male Hebrew children at birth. They disobeyed that command to preserve life, but they did so in a way that used discretion and tact. When Pharaoh asked why they had let the boys live, they responded that the Hebrew women were giving birth before the midwives arrived, Exodus 1:19. You see, they didn't lie. That would have been an outright sin. But they used deception. They used subterfuge. I guarantee you everything they said was true as they meant it. And they're not responsible if Pharaoh didn't ask any more questions. You see, this was a practical decision in a fallen world, a compromise of sorts aimed at reducing harm, preserving life, without directly defying Pharaoh's authority in a way that would have led to immediate punishment or destruction. They compromised and made concessions politically, but they did not make compromises and concessions morally. Now, I'm going to give you something to chew on. I don't believe the Hebrews to the midwives were Egyptian. I believe they were Hebrews. I'm not the only one. That little tidbit ought to wet your whistle for more study in the future. All right, now let's see if I can look at these comment sections. Man, I got a good comment section today. What's up, Gold Trap? I've already said good morning, but you get two. Hope you're doing well. Brandon Wild, good morning. Terry Crooks. Hey, Terry, I owe you an apology. I cannot, on the 1,000 subscriber celebration and Bible giveaway, you made a comment and said hello. I never once acknowledged it. I don't mean to do that. Sometimes I don't, and I don't have any excuse because it was right there on my screen. I don't know what I did. I overlooked it. Anyway, I'm glad you're here and I'm glad you was there the other day. Brandon Wild about abortion. It is murder. I will never waver from that. And Brandon Wild also said, I did that when I was not saved and I paid my child support for 18 years and helped raise her. God bless you. God bless you. All right. Hello, Dinah Harden. It's so good to see you. Y'all, my stomach just growled so loud. If I didn't have a little bit of a noise gate on my preamp, you ought to heard it. All right. Sorry. All right. Hey, Alabama. It just goes to show the hypocrisy of some people. They had no problem with what Clinton or the Bushes did or said, but for some reason, Trump does what if Trump does it, it's wrong. Shut your mouth. Man. Listen. Yeah, I can't believe I've never thought of that. Donald Trump wasn't near as bad and deceitful and underhanded as George W. Bush. George W. Bush was part of the deep state. And the way you know that is by how they embrace him now. Do you think if you think Donald Trump gets elected and goes 4 more years, you think he's going to be embraced by the administration that's been trying to put him in jail for 8 years, it seems? And Christians, that morally, George W. Bush is reprehensible. He's worse than Donald Trump. He just don't say mean tweets. He just don't say mean things. He's nice, but I don't believe he was kind. Donald Trump is kind. He ain't nice. He's your standard bloviating, egocentric New York billionaire businessman. Anyway, thank you very much, Terry Crooks. I knew you'd be all right, but I surely just wanted to communicate that anyway. But anyway, hey, Alabama, you and I are reminding that. Over the last 4 years, people have been given the chance to stand up for themselves, and they have chose not to. Yes. All right. Now this is what I've not looked at a whole lot of Ted Cruz. I just know Ted Cruz on the surface. So I'm open to any kind of correction or information. I just don't know a lot about him. What I do know about him, though, I really like, but I don't know everything. Ted Cruz is a hard no for me. He admitted to not being eligible but when pressured to run, changed his tune. He also made sure he was out of town for some critical votes. Now that, yeah, I get that. I wasn't aware of that he admitted to not being eligible, but when pressured to run, changes his tune. Does that mean that I don't know. I don't know what that means. I had to look it up. People, especially Christians, need to stop letting the media tell them who to hate and what to do. So many seem not to think for themselves anymore. Yes. And great minds don't think alike. They think for themselves. From time to time, and John X, yeah, so that's why I like Ted Cruz. He does put others' feet to the fire. And I did see one of Hey Alabama's message out of the corner of my mind, and I'll preemptively kind of look towards that. She says he picks and chooses. I will tell you that I was aware of that. Excuse me. So, good morning. Ted also advocated for term. Yes, John, that was the one I was thinking of. If Ted Cruz was running for office in the primaries, I'd do a whole lot more research on this, what y'all are talking about. But I will tell you that I get the idea that Ted Cruz is probably no longer going to be a presidential candidate. I have no reason other than this brain under my receding hairline to think that. It's just what I think by what I've heard. Don't ask me to prove it, and I don't know enough about it to convince anybody. And there may be a video right now that says, yeah, if Trump wins 4 more years, I'm going to run in 2028 for sure. Well, I stand corrected then. I'm sorry. But I don't know that I feel like I would hear about that if he did it. What am I doing? Oh, John X. I'm sorry I'm late. Just finished class for the Hyderbad. Hyderbad? Hyderbad. Hyderbad School of Preaching. Cool. And John says, I disagree. Hey, hey. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's so this is cool. John and Hey Hey disagree. John and Hey Hey are dealing with the same information but are drawing different conclusions. Now the cool thing is, if let's say 4 more years pass, we got 4 more years of Trump, and let's say that in the primary you have Cruz, Carson, uh, not Waltz, God forbid, but J.D. Vance and who would be the other one? Vivek Ramaswamy and the Florida governor sets out. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got 4 candidates in the primaries. I guarantee you that if Hey Hey Alabama and John Exum were talking face to face, that they could even have a heated discussion on which one they like better. But let's say that John Exum was like, no, I don't like that Vivek Ramaswamy. I'd never vote for him. I'm going to vote for Ted Cruz in the primary. And Hey Hey's like, hey, I don't know who you'd vote for. But let's say Hey Hey Alabama says, look, I love Vivek Ramaswamy, and I'm going to vote for him, and here's why you should, and well, here's why you shouldn't, and here's why you shouldn't, and here's why you should. And they may even get heated. But now, once the primary is set, if Vivek Ramaswamy goes, if Vivek Ramaswamy wins, and then he's going to run against somebody like a Tim Walz or a some character like that, or maybe Kamala Harris again. Guess what? I would imagine, and I can't speak for the man, but I would imagine he would pull that lever for Vivek, even though he was totally opposed to him in the primary. And I dare say that with Hey Hey Alabama, if Vivek lost the primary and Ted Cruz won, she might abstain. But in order to keep somebody like Tim Walz or Kamala Harris or, another Joe Biden-esque character in order to keep them out of the presidency, she may hold her nose and pull the lever for who was I talking about? Ted Cruz. So anyway, and I could be wrong about that, but that little scenario is what you get whenever you're playing chess with your politics and you're not enslaved to ideology. That's a problem this is big a problem on the right as it is on the left, is being enslaved to ideology. Don't be enslaved to ideology. All right, good deal. Excellent comments today. I really like the idea of term limits, but I don't know. I've had term limits explained to me in a way where I might vote against term limits if it were up to me. But in principle, I like them. All right. Term limits is a way to get and keep the cronies in office. You won't have a choice of who you get in office. See you, Hey Hey Alabama. Yeah, term limits prevents lifetime politicians. That's both what Hey Hey Alabama said and what John Exum said is 100% true. 100% true. Term limits will prevent terrible politicians from being a lifetime politician. But the problem is setting term limits in Congress also disallows good politicians from being lifetime politicians. Does that make sense? So you really got to weigh and measure the balance. But anyway, I honestly don't know if it could come down to me pulling a lever for term limits or against term limits. I don't think I'm of a mind to decide as I'm sitting right now. All right. Oh, and hey, and Terry Crooks, thank you so much. I'm okay. Don't sweat the small stuff. I enjoy the show every day, whether or not you acknowledge me. Keep up. I'm so sorry. That just makes me whether or not you acknowledge me. I enjoy the show. Oh, Terry. I am. It bothers me, and you're not the only one. Like I'll every once in a while, I was like Connie Barden's really good to come in and say hello, but she's doing something around the house, and so she'll come in and say hello, and I won't see it come across, so she might listen to the whole thing, and she's already said hello. I've never acknowledged her. Anyway, Connie Barden and me been Facebook buddies for years now. She's from Northwest Arkansas. No, she's not. She's she's from somewhere in Arkansas. Anyhow, gotta love the Arkansas peeps. The roots of my raising run deep. They run all the way back to Northwest Tennessee, but they run from here to Northwest Tennessee via Arkansas. All right. Hold on. No, it doesn't. That's why we already have term limits in the way of supporting someone else to run for office and not the same stuff. That's the voter's fault. He told interviewers, oh, okay, this is what I want. He told interviewers that he wasn't qualified to run. His mother was not an American citizen at the time of his birth. If he can be president, so can the Saudi prince. So I that's a sticky situation. Let me explain why. The law should not be interpreted as if you're a Japanese woman and you're 8.5 months pregnant and you fly to the United States and you have your child while you're here, that doesn't mean your child is a U.S. citizen. That's how that law is interpreted, though, to the point where that's how it's been used over the years. Now it is taken on that interpretation almost as if that was the original intent of the law. So I don't know. That's a sticky situation. Um, if Ted Cruz's mother was not an American citizen at the time of his birth, did she have permanent residence? Was she here on a visa or was she illegal? I wouldn't be totally opposed to him being president just because of that. But that's just me. Again, the theme is mitigation of harm. That would be a compromise and a concession. In other words, even if his mother was in the United States illegally when he was born, I would still vote for Ted Cruz over Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Tim Walz or I don't even know who that's the thing. The Democrats really don't have any up and comers like the Republicans do. So who knows? Um, but anyway, oh man, I've been going an hour. It's 1:30. Um, yeah, not a fan of the Florida dude either. He needs a do-over button. He really messed his campaign up. I think he could have edged Trump out, and he could have been the leader. He could have been the guy, but he messed his campaign up. I honestly, I don't want to show off my tinfoil hat too much, but if it were the case that people from Trump's camp infiltrated his and did things to harm his camp, the Florida guy, they couldn't have done a better job than what happened. So I don't know. Uh, Ted is holding the highest office he can hold constitutionally. That I agree with. If we interpret the law the way it's supposed to be interpreted, yes. And we have term limits. I wish Hey Alabama was still here. We have term limits and people won't use them. I don't know what that's talking about. Is there something that I'm unaware of? Do politicians have term limits? Do Congress people have term limits and it's just not enforced? I don't think so, but I've been wrong like 3 times already today. I've only met 2 people. Anyhow, I don't like the Supreme Court lifetime deal, but I'm a mixed. I have mixed feelings about it. Yeah, that's again. There's a sense in which it's really good to have the stability of lifetime leaders, because if you get a good one, you've got them for life. But on the other hand, if you get a bad one, you've got them for life. So I don't know. What you gain on the swing, sometimes you lose on the roundabout. Well, folks, I'm done. I hope I've said something in all my ramblings today that has edified you, that's informed you. I hope when it comes time to cast your ballot, you'll understand that casting a ballot for one politician over another is not endorsing all the negative things, or it's not making moral compromises with all the negative things. You're casting a ballot for the candidate, and his or her job is to mitigate harm. So who is going to mitigate the most harm? And I want to say this one more time. I think I would stick by this. The inception of personhood is the conception of a human life. Okay, yes, that I can square with. Rusty Kirby says, I think he means vote on them each term, and we never vote them out. Yes, you're right. I get it. I get it. And you said he is Hey Hey Alabama a man? I thought, oh man. See, with YouTube, with the screen names, I don't know. I've been calling Hey Hey Alabama she and sister and ma'am, and they've never corrected me. Maybe there's a little bit of begrudging utility. Maybe there's a little bit of begrudging respect for utility that I can give to the other side about pronouns. If I were to say, "Hey, hey, Alabama wrote blank, blank, blank," but I can't understand what they mean, I'm going to have to get some clarification. Well, I use the word they, so it's gender neutral. But anyway, folks, I'm going to get off here. I hope I've said something that's been edifying and informative. Even I've learned some stuff today because I didn't know that stuff about Ted Cruz. I'm going to be able to go and look it up. I appreciate every one of you so much. Oh, okay, good, good, good. My mistake. You were right, not he. Good deal, Rusty. Um, y'all, I just now I've over the last few years, I've almost learned not to be overconfident about anything. It doesn't matter what I think I know. Anyhow, that's all I'm gonna say about that, folks. We need your support. We need your help. We're doing some work to try to get out of this purgatory that we are in Facebook. All last week, I didn't think it was working. Well, in the last 48 hours, I've seen activity that makes me think it's working. Please go to my personal profile, Tony Brewer. Go there and follow me, share the stuff. That's really not my personal account. I'm using it as kind of a hub. Go to Christianity Now on Facebook and share the content there. Make sure you've liked and shared that and follow that page. Make sure you're subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really need your help growing that. Um, yeah, we got some. We got again. I don't want to be future faking, but we do have things. It's so slow going, but we have things coming together that we're gonna hopefully bring some stuff to where we're gonna offer some more stuff on Mondays, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to carve out some time to do some short videos. I've talked to a few of my buddies, and they will record videos and send them to me on particular topics, and so that'll help as well. But anyway, uh, Christianity Now streams. Follow us on Twitter, on X, uh, One Chronicles 1231, Christianity Now at One Chronicles 1231. Follow us on Instagram at Understanding the Time, and then go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, TuneIn Radio, type Cogitations, and you'll be able to find all of us there. And then I've re-upped narrating my articles. And you can go to Substack and search Christianity Now, and you can find them there. Or you can go to Apple Podcast or Spotify and type in Christianity Now narrations, and you'll find the articles, or you'll find the narrations there. And I did not realize that we were averaging on these articles, over all of the articles, we're averaging like almost 30 downloads a month. But the problem is, we've got articles in the beginning that didn't get hardly any views. And so, as I look back in the last month of the articles that we've produced on Spotify and Apple Podcasts through narrations, every one of them are north of 30 downloads, and some of them are got 50 downloads. Now that's such a small number, but that's huge for us. It's crazy. That gets up there to that 2,025 downloads a month uh, area, which is cool. But Christianity Now narrations, articles, the readings are always going to be 10 minutes or less. Anyway, that's all we got, folks. Cogitations by Christianity Now. Search for it everywhere. Support us if you can on Substack or Patreon, www.patreon.com/Christianity Now for as little as $1 a month, and Substack for $5 a month. And we'll catch you